In the early morning hours of November 13th of 2022, 4 University of Idaho students were stabbed to death at this address at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho. Their names are Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogen, Kaylee Goncalves, and Xana Kernodle. And there were 2 roommates in the house who were unharmed. On December 30th of 2022, the suspect, Bryan Kohberger, was arrested in Pennsylvania, where he was staying with his family for the holidays. And he was extradited back to Idaho and charged with 1 count of burglary and 4 counts of first-degree murder. Then, as we've been following everything happening in this case, all the documents, the hearings, just everything that's been building up to a death penalty trial that was set to start on August 18th of 2025 with opening statements. Wow, on July 2nd of 2025, Bryan Kohberger decided to plead guilty to all the charges that he faced, meaning the death penalty is no longer on the table. He got 4 sentences of life without parole, and of course, I think it was 10 years for the burglary, but he'll never get out of prison based on this sentence. And his sentencing date was set for July 22nd of 2025. So I don't know if we'll hear more from him, but we certainly heard on that day that he changed his plea to guilty on all counts.
And then let me ask you, did you, on November 13th, 2022, enter the residence at 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder?
Yes.
Did you, on November 13th, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, kill and murder Madison Mogen, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, and with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
Did you, on or about that same date in Moscow, Idaho, kill and murder Kaylee Goncalves, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, and with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
And did you, on that same date in Moscow, Idaho, kill and murder Xana Kernodle, a human being?
Yes.
And did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
And then on or about November 13th, 2022, again in Latah County, Idaho, did you kill and murder Ethan Chapin, a human being?
Yes.
Did you do that willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and malice aforethought?
Yes.
That was a bit of a shock to everyone. I don't know. Not to everyone. Some people say that they felt that, this was expected. It was certainly a shock to me and many of us based on your comments, right? So here's some pictures of him. Nate Eaton from East Idaho News, he posted this. So I'm going to link this for you in case you want to check out some more of these pictures from the day when he pleaded guilty. Now, as you might know, some family members of the victims are okay with this plea deal. They say, thank goodness they don't have to go through that whole trial and the whole appeal process as well, which would be, part of him being on death row and all of that. So they're happy with that, which would be Madison Mogen's family and I believe Ethan Chapin's family. But Xana Kernodle's family and Kaylee Goncalves' family are very upset by this. So I'm going to read you one of the latest statements as well from Kaylee Goncalves' family. The main point of today's video is that I want to quickly recap what the state prosecutor said at this plea change hearing where Bryan Kohberger accepted a plea deal, because there were a few little points that it was new information, I think. Let me know if there's anything else that you learned from there as well. And I just want to tell you about the prison where he is most likely going to spend the rest of his life after he's sentenced. Now, of course, sometimes inmates are moved. Like we saw Chris Watts move from Colorado to Wisconsin, or Letitia Stauch was also moved from Colorado. I think she was in Oklahoma. I don't know if she's still there or not. But sometimes they move for their own safety. But if he isn't moved, then the prison I'm going to show you today is most likely where he's going to be housed and where he'll stay for the rest of his life. I think in the beginning he might be segregated. I don't know if he'll ever be part of Gen Pop. He should be. But yeah, the unfortunate thing is that obviously compared to death row, in Gen Pop, or that side of the prison, he can get commissary, he can work, he can study, further his education. I mean, imagine if he becomes a professor in there, oh my word. So also, if you haven't yet seen a video by Jumpsuit Pablo about his interpretation of how he thinks he'll cope in prison based on his experience, then I'm going to link that for you as well, so you can go and check that out. But yeah, so I'm linking this so that in case you want to see more of these images, there's a whole gallery of images posted of Bryan Kohberger from July 2nd of 2025, which obviously we can see more detail than we could see on the court feed, right? Okay, so now let me show you this statement by the Goncalves family page, Kaylee Goncalves' family, because here they said, friends, okay, wait, let me just move it over so that you can see nicely. They said, friends, we are home. Thank you for all your support, love and prayers. This page is a place of comfort for me, my safe place. You all have been with me for years now and have always stood right next to me. I will forever be grateful. I'm sorry if you don't agree with our recent decisions on the plea deal. BK, so Bryan Kohberger, literally is too afraid to die, but he wasn't afraid to kill. BK wanted a plea deal and he was given one. Kaylee wasn't offered a plea deal. The state is showing BK mercy by removing the death penalty. BK did not show Kaylee any mercy. People tell us that we should be happy with life in prison without parole, as he will never get out. How is that not a win, they ask? Well, the death penalty also means life on death row. We knew it would be decades before he would ever face the firing squad. We knew that his execution was not going to happen anytime soon. But his life on death row while serving his time would have been much worse than serving his time as life in prison. He doesn't deserve life in prison. He deserved life on death row. Also, people say that the Goncalveses don't want justice. They want vengeance. Well, let me ask you a question about that. If your 21-year-old daughter was sleeping in her bed and BK went into her house with the intention to kill her, and he did by stabbing her many times, as well as beating her in the face and head while it was clear that she fought for her life, what would you want? Justice or vengeance? Maybe a little bit of both? I'm curious how you all would feel. It gets so old having people say that we want vengeance and make it sound like we are animals for having those feelings. I just find it so hard that so many people are judging us and they've never stepped foot in our shoes. Many people are talking about a GoFundMe and returning everyone's money. I understand this is a priority for many people. Please give me time to figure out the best way to do this. Shame, oh my goodness. I can't just ask GoFundMe to reimburse everyone, as the money has already been deposited into my bank account and is no longer held by GoFundMe. Stephen, I need a few days, so maybe it's Kaylee's mom, sorry, writing this. A few days alone to process what has just happened. It's so hard to describe what we are going through right now. It's very mentally and emotionally exhausting. My whole body aches, my fingertips to my toes. Please give us some grace. I promise we won't skip town. Oh my goodness, shame. I mean, I understand, obviously, how they feel. I don't know why people are like so annoyed with them and just saying, just go away and whatever. Like, whoa, their daughter was brutally murdered, and everybody grieves differently and reacts differently, of course, to this news. And I think they're all entitled to their own feelings about it, right? They don't have to like it. So there's that. And then I wanted to show you this. Oh my word. So it says, Bryan Kohberger set to die in one of America's worst prisons with feces smeared cages, riots, and biohazard ventilation system. I wonder if he'll call his dad. Dad, can you help? Because his dad's trained in HVAC, right? And Bryan Kohberger did some HVAC courses. So can you come change the vents? Huh? Okay, so apparently this is where he's going. And it's the same prison where Chad Daybell is. If you don't know who Chad Daybell is, then check out, just ask Uncle Google. Who is Chad Daybell? Who is Lori Vallow Daybell? And you're going to find out a whole lot. I also have a playlist on the case if you want to check it out. Of course, Chad Daybell is sitting on death row. Bryan Kohberger won't be because he's accepted this plea deal. So he's going to be more on the Gen Pop side of things, right? So Bryan Kohberger is set to spend the rest of his life in one of America's worst prisons, a maximum security hellhole that faces accusations of feces-smeared cages, brutally violent guards, rioting inmates, and a biohazard ventilation system. The 30-year-old convicted killer of 4 University of Idaho students will serve his sentence in the state's most brutal prison alongside Chad Daybell, the child murderer and husband of doomsday cult mom Lori Vallow, as well as 2 of Idaho's most notorious serial killers. Idaho Maximum Security Institution, IMSI, where Kohberger is expected to be sentenced to life in prison, opened in 1989 and hosts the gem state's most disruptive male residents and violent criminals. They say Bryan Kohberger is likely to spend the rest of his life in Idaho Maximum Security Institution. So actually, bring up the map again. I wanted to show you from where the house is at this 1122 King Road, which the house was demolished. It's no longer there. But if we just look on this map, look how far south it is from that location. It's all the way down here at this, I think the Boise Airport is right here. Yeah, the Boise Airport is right here. And it's still south of that. Here it is on the map. Shame, look at it. Oh my goodness. So can you imagine all the other inmates in there, of which I think there's about 550, something like that, based on what Nate Eaton said. We'll check out a clip from him in a moment as well. I just want to tell you some of this. So look at these pictures too. They said the prison has been named one of the worst in America according to Security Journal Americas, KBOI. Since then, it has developed a reputation as not just the toughest prison in the state, but one of the harshest in the nation. IMSI was named one of the 15 worst prisons in America by Security Journal Americas in 2024, alongside other infamous institutions, including Louisiana State Penitentiary, aka The Farm, San Quentin in California, and Attica Correctional Facility in Western New York. The magazine highlighted its alleged harsh treatment of inmates, excessive use of solitary confinement, and lack of mental health resources. Violence between inmates and allegations of excessive force by corrections officers were also brought up, as well as overcrowding leading to a tense and volatile environment, the outlet wrote. In 2016, the newly appointed director of the Idaho Department of Correction looked to reform the state's use of solitary as punishment. Many of the inmates were locked away in solitary confinement for 23 hours a day, KBOI reported at the time. This meant little to no human interaction, food in cells, and only showering 3 times a week, a pattern some inmates live under for decades. 97% of these guys are going to get out and walk into an Idaho community, Kempf told KBOI. If we treat them like crap, if we treat them like animals, they're going to walk out of prison like that. Obviously, Bryan Kohberger has no chance of actually walking out of there, at least at this time. Unless the law changes, like we saw, maybe something comes up, hopefully not, but like the Menendez brothers, right? Would they re-look at the centers? I don't think so in this case, but you never know. This says the previous prison director warned that solitary was turning inmates into animals. In particular, he highlighted the dangers of excessive solitary confinement for inmates. You do that for 10 or 15 years, you've created a monster out of that person, he said. Kohberger, 30, who on Tuesday pleaded guilty to killing 4 University of Idaho students in their Moscow home while they slept in November of 2022, has been held in maximum security at Ada County Jail in Boise since the trial was moved to the state capital. We might even want to look how far that was from here. So if we say Ada County Jail. So here's the Ada County Jail where he's been held since the trial was going to be in the new venue. And that is only 11.2 miles or a 19-minute drive from where he currently is, right? So you'll drive, 20 minutes? A 20-minute drive to get to his new forever home. He's been sitting in this jail for quite some time, and before that, obviously, he was in Moscow, Idaho. So now that you know a little bit about that, let me show you a clip from Nate Eaton about this as well, where he posted this a year ago, and it was mostly about Chad Daybell, but I found it interesting because, of course, he's standing outside that very prison where they believe Bryan Kohberger is going to be. So let's listen to this one.
Maximum Security Institution in Kuna. You can see this is the sign that people see when they drive up the road leading to the prison. It's right behind me. It was built in 1989. This is where Chad Daybell will spend the rest of his life. Now, we can't take our cameras inside, but we'll get a little bit closer. I'll tell you a little bit more about the prison and what happens to those people who are here on death row. Now, the Idaho Maximum Security Prison opened about 35 years ago. It houses the most disruptive inmates in the prison system. It can house about 550 people total, and there are 2 fences, a double fence here, both of them wrapped in razor wire, and there's an electronic detection system that runs through those fences. So it would be nearly impossible to get through those fences if you were trying to escape from the prison. Chad Daybell was brought here on June 1st, right after a jury sentenced him to death, and he is on death row inside of the prison.
And that was June 1st of 2024, and he was sentenced to death. So he had his whole trial, he was sentenced to death, and he's on death row. Kohberger could be at the same prison, but just not on death row, which, again, there were only like 9 people on death row here. So it's interesting that he pleaded guilty and is willing to accept, this LWOP in Gen Pop.
Which is basically the 9 inmates currently on death row are in their own segregated area. They stay in their cell 23 hours a day. They have no contact with other inmates. They're not able to freely come and go from a pod. They are basically in their cell. They do have 1 hour where they can get out to get a little bit of exercise. The other inmates on death row with Chad Daybell include Azad Abdullah. He's convicted of first-degree murder.
So if Kohberger was sentenced to death, he would have been on death row with these people, but now he's not going to be in the same unit as these people, and he'll obviously have more time in the rec yard, I would assume, more opportunities, with the life without parole sentence.
For the arson death of his wife in Ada County. Thomas Creech, who was recently in the news as they tried to execute him earlier this year, but they could not get an IV. He's been on death row since January 1983. Timothy Dunlap was received into death row in April of 1992. He's convicted of first-degree murder for killing a woman during a bank robbery in Caribou County. James Hairston, he was booked here back in 1996, convicted of first-degree murder for 2 shooting deaths in Bannock County. Eric Hall, he was here, booked here in 2004 in October, convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder for raping and killing 2 women in Ada County. Gerald Pizzuto, he's been on death row since May of 1986, convicted of first-degree murder for beating 2 people to death. Jonathan Renfro, he has been on death row before Chad Daybell, the most recently admitted person on death row, in November of 2017, convicted of first-degree murder for the shooting death of a police officer. Now, there is one woman on death row who is actually in the Pocatello Women's Prison. She's not here in Kuna. Robin Rowe was booked and received into the Pocatello facility in 1993. She's convicted of first-degree murder for the arson deaths of her husband, son, and daughter in Ada County. And again, Chad Daybell joins those other people who are on death row, and he will remain in his solitary cell until a death warrant is issued. Now, that can take decades. As you heard me read the years from some of those other inmates, he could be in there for the next 20, 30, possibly 40 years. But once all of the appeals have been exhausted, a death warrant is issued. Idaho then immediately moves him from the facility behind me into what's called the F unit. And this is what it looks like. This is where inmates go as they wait to die. And when that death warrant is...
So I'm showing you this because this is what Bryan Kohberger has decided to avoid. Which, tell me what you think about it. To me, I feel like where he's going is much worse than this. Even though it's death row and there will be this impending, execution date. Sometimes, as they said, it takes decades. I just wonder if the conditions are not somehow better. Not that we want it to be, but then Gen Pop. Like Gen Pop sounds hectic, right? Even though there's more opportunities, I think, like you can further your education, you can get commissary, all of that. Maybe he wants to, maybe sick of solitary because he's been pretty much segregated for all this time. I don't know, but I'm still surprised that he took this plea deal. Are you still surprised? So I'm going to link this clip for you if you want to watch the rest of that. I have something else I want to show you as well, which is this clip based on this clip. Actually, wait, let me just see the date. It was posted in 2016 about this same prison. Okay, so check this one out. Let's go from here.
Of inmates at the Idaho Maximum Security Institution are locked in solitary confinement.
Now, some of those inmates are on death row, or they can't be trusted around other inmates and prison staff.
In a story you'll see only on KBOI2, Jeff Platt takes us to a place cameras are rarely allowed to find out if solitary confinement is serving its purpose.
Spend
let's
any
see it.
amount of time here at the Idaho Maximum Security Institution and you'll quickly learn the phrase maximum security is no understatement. About 500 of Idaho's high-risk inmates call this place home. Many of them are locked away in solitary confinement. This means they have little to no human interaction, eat in their cells, and only shower 3 times a week. I went into one of these cells to get an idea of what this life is like, and after only 4 minutes, I leave the cell never wanting to go back. My few minutes alone provide.
Damn, after 4 minutes, he's already like, get me the hell out of here. I never want to go back. Imagine knowing, well, that's the rest of your life that you're going to spend there.
Just a glimpse of what life is like here. Some inmates have lived this way for decades. Inmates in solitary confinement spend 23 hours a day in a cell, then get to come out here for rec where they spend another hour in a cell, something IDOC says they're trying to get away from. Idaho Department of Correction Director Kevin Kemp says while some inmates need to be in solitary confinement for safety reasons, for those who aren't a risk, locking them away is not productive, which is why he's ushering in a wave of reforms to minimize the use of solitary confinement in Idaho prisons.
97% of these guys are going to get out and walk into an Idaho community. If we treat them like crap, if we treat them like animals, they're going to walk out of a prison like that.
According to Kemp, this was proved just 2 years ago when 44 inmates were released directly from solitary confinement back into the free world.
So we took belly chains and leg irons off of them and then cut them loose out of our front door. That's irresponsible. We can't do that.
Even though IDOC is limiting their use of solitary confinement, certain inmates will remain caged for the safety of others, but they will.
Do you think Bryan Kohberger will be caged for his own safety or the safety of others? I think he could be.
Will be the exception, not the rule.
Some people think, oh my gosh, they're just being soft on inmates. It's not the case. It's absolutely not the case.
Kemp believes this because, as he says, in a prison setting, you can either make people better or you can make them worse. And locking people away for 23 hours each day makes them worse.
You do that for 10, 15 years, you've created a monster out of that person.
So in an effort to create better neighbors and members of the Idaho community rather than creating monsters, IDOC is moving towards an approach to adjust inmates to a normal life.
And then we have inmates that are going through our step-down program on the upper level.
That was Warden Al Ramirez. He's cut the number of inmates in solitary by 1/3 over the last year. A big part of this is the step-down program, which all starts in a cell like this one. This cell may look a little harsh, but it helps inmates adjust from solitary confinement. And once they get out, most of them have a much easier time staying out of solitary confinement. And once they're out of solitary confinement, inmates can get lower risk ratings and eventually have some freedom within the walls of the prison in hopes that this will allow them a smooth and crime-free transition back into the real world with the tools to never see the inside of these walls ever again. From the Idaho Maximum Security Institution, Jeff Platt, KBOI2 News.
Okay, and lastly in this video, I want to show you a preview of this wonderful work. I know you've all been emailing this to me. I'm also aware of it. So check this presentation out. My goodness. From this channel, which is called As Get Industries. And they were actually hired by Dateline to do this 3D model. So remember we saw a little bit of this on that most recent Dateline episode? If you didn't see it, or you can't see it because you're outside of the USA, like I am as well, I had an American friend help me to be able to see it. Thank you so much, Grizzly Cat. Yeah, I do have a summary video for you on the playlist, so you can catch everything that we learned from that episode as well. Before I show you this, I did promise to tell you some of the things that the state prosecutor said at this plea hearing that I thought was new information, because the way he also started his recitation, of the case was that maybe we'd be learning something new. So number one, they said that they have never recovered the murder weapon. They've never recovered that K-bar knife, even though they obviously found the sheath right there by Madison Mogen's body, and that had Bryan Kohberger's DNA on it. They have not found the knife. Number two is that they said they believe Bryan Kohberger parked up on that hill behind the house, so we'd never heard exactly where he'd parked before. If you want to re-listen to the hearing and hear Bill Thompson, the prosecutor, say all of this, then I've linked that below for you because we watched it all together, right?
Okay, so we're up on the road back behind the house. This house behind me, that path that I showed you, that path connects to the backyard of this house. And there's really a whole other neighborhood up here. We're gonna show you. I'm gonna get in the car and drive you up. And just show you what's up here, because it's interesting. You know, you've got the neighborhood down below where the apartments are, the college students. But up here, if you came up that path, you could have parked up here somewhere. Pan this way and show you. When you come around this corner, there's an intersection here. That's a dead-end street that way. This way is not a dead-end street. This is Ridge Road. So Walenta Drive we were on, this is Ridge Road. You see there's a whole other neighborhood up here. Ton of houses. And that area down below connects to this whole area up here.
So now we know where he parked. They said that they believe Bryan Kohberger entered through that sliding door at the back of the house and then went immediately to the 3rd floor and killed Madison Mogen and Kaylee Goncalves. And then either Xana ran up the stairs and encountered Bryan Kohberger and ran back down, or while he was, making his way downstairs and for some reason forgetting the knife sheath, that he encountered Xana Kernodle and killed her, and then went to her bedroom and killed Ethan Chapin. And they said that Ethan Chapin was sleeping. So I don't know if you remember from the Dateline episode, they said that Ethan's legs had been carved. Apparently his legs were cut with a knife, like his hamstrings. Maybe the killer, Bryan Kohberger, did that to prevent him from running, but it sounds, oh my goodness, these details are so horrific. So there was something there as well that we had learned. And then they said from the trash pool in Pennsylvania, they got a Q-tip which had the DNA of the father of the suspect, which is now of the convicted, right? Because he pleaded guilty. So it was from a Q-tip that they got that, and that everything was so meticulously clean. We already knew about that. If there's anything else I forgot, if there's something new that you learned, please let me know as well. I'm just having a look here at some of the transcripts that I had printed out. These are not from like the court clerk. It's literally from listening to the court hearing and just getting those transcripts from YouTube, okay? Just to be clear, in case someone thinks, oh my word, she's got court transcripts. No. I just got them from YouTube, okay? Just so that I could read over everything, because sometimes I absorb information better that way. Just see, like, what exactly did they say? And was there something new that we learned? So there was that, and they also said that they don't believe that Kohberger went in there. They can't prove that he went in there with intent to kill 4 people. But he did end up killing 4 people, right? Okay, so everybody is speculating online that I've seen that Madison Mogen was his likely target. Why would they say that? Is because Kaylee wasn't actually going to be there. She was just there to show her best friend, Madison Mogen, her new Range Rover. And so Kaylee was there. Murphy the dog was there as well. Ethan also wouldn't usually sleep over there, but he was there with Xana. So it makes sense why people speculate that maybe Madison Mogen was the target, and maybe things just completely, snowballed from there in the worst kind of way. All right, now check this out. I'm going to link this for you. Please go there and watch this video in full. I'm just going to show you some of it, give you a taste, because I think you're going to like it if you haven't seen it yet. And then go to the channel and support them and support their amazing work. If you want to, leave a comment there for them and say that you're coming from Grizzly True Crime. That would be amazing as well.
At this time, everyone is asleep except for Xana. Looking inside the home, we can see where everybody was. Starting at the 3rd floor, we can see where Maddie and Kaylee were sleeping. Maddie was sleeping on the edge of the bed, while Kaylee was sleeping near the wall. As we go out and drop down to the 2nd floor, we can see Dylan's room directly under Maddie's room. Continuing across the living room onto the other side of the home, we see Xana's room. She's sitting in bed scrolling on her phone while Ethan sleeps next to her. Minutes ago, she had just finished ordering DoorDash and has all the lights on while she waits. The last roommate to mention is Beth, whose room is on the 1st floor directly below the living room. As most of them all sleep, Kohberger pulled into the neighborhood for the first time this night at precisely 3:30 a.m. We know this due to a home security camera that captures the intersection and records the coming and going of anybody that enters that neighborhood. As we continue, Kohberger drives past the home and notices that all the lights on the second floor are still on. He drives on and loops around the apartment complex building. Because of the home security timestamp, we're able to know how long it took to drive this path. On his first pass, it took him 2 minutes and 38 seconds, and this is him leaving on the first pass. Now let's look at his next 2 passes and record the times.
Isn't this
This
presentation
is pass
amazing?
2 of him entering and leaving. And now this is pass 3 of him entering and leaving. When we do the math, we can see how long he took each pass. The last 2 passes were normal without any stopping, but on his first pass, he took an additional 42 seconds to creep by the house or even stop for a time to stare into the windows with the lights on. All this information has been coming from camera A, but there is a second camera located behind the apartment complex building, and we're going to call that camera B, located here. This camera allows us to see how long it took to get from point A to point B, and between the 3 security cameras' data, it took between 35 and 37 seconds. What this means is you didn't stop or park somewhere or go into a different direction. He simply drove straight from point A to point B at regular speed. These times help us understand the DoorDash delivery window. According to court documents, 2 times are noted. One is 3:59 a.m. and the other is 4 a.m. Bringing back our passage chart, we can see that the DoorDash time of 3:59 happens after Kohberger has left the neighborhood and before he returns for his last pass at 4:04. It is possible that the DoorDash driver saw Kohberger as he was parking his car, because a timestamp of 3:59 could be reflected when he took the photo of the food at the front door instead of the time he arrived. So it is possible he witnessed Kohberger staring at the windows as he drove by.
He, not being she, right? Because the DoorDash driver was, well, she identified herself from that body cam, right? That lady called Molly, which we've looked at it before, which I'm sure she's quite relieved that she's not going to have to testify at this trial, right? She seemed very distressed about it in the body cam that we've seen previously, which is on the playlist. But isn't this just amazing how this presentation is done? I mean, going through everything. I'll go forward a little bit just here so that you could see. Oh my word, this is so eerie. Look at this.
Approximately 4:13 a.m., he begins to make entry.
Oh my
As he
goodness.
steps in, he takes a minute to make sure everything is quiet and that nobody is truly up. He walks.
So yeah, while I'm all over again, absolutely glued to the screen, which I'm sure you will be too, I don't want to, when you go watch it over there, I don't want to show you the whole thing because I would love that creator to be fully supported. So please, when you go there, remember to like her video, to share the video, to leave some comments as well. And I think she did leave some ways to support her work as well on this video, right? There you go. So if you keep watching, she will tell you how you can support her work. Okay, so I've shown you everything that I wanted to show you today. If you liked the video, then please do hit the thumbs up, not because you like the topic. I know sometimes in true crime it feels awkward to like a video, but you're liking the way that I present true crime, or that I brought the information to you, or you want others to learn about this as well, which tells YouTube, yeah, show it to more people. So thank you to all of you who hit the like button, who share, who comment below. If you haven't yet checked out my Patreon, then please do check that out as well, because there's lots of behind the scenes content over there. There's mini podcast episodes, which I call little voice clips because I'm not a podcaster. There's behind the scenes videos, there's photos of course of the cats. Everyone loves that too. So go and check that out. It's only $1. All tiers receive the exact same benefits. So thank you so much to everyone who's made it over there as well. And if you're a YouTube member too, thank you for supporting the work that I do. You make it possible for me to do this full time, and I'm so appreciative. Okay, so I will see you in this case at the sentencing, which I'm sure will be streamed. I would hope so. And there will be victim impact statements there as well, which usually in Idaho, they don't actually stream victim impact statements. So I wonder if we'll be able to see that or not. Steve Goncalves, Kaylee's dad, actually said in a recent interview that he doesn't even think he's going to make any victim impact statements. Shame. So I hope that he'll change his mind, that he'll get to, have his say and say exactly what he wants to say to Bryan Kohberger, because I can't imagine being in any of these family members' shoes. It's so horrifying to think that this person entered this home and just stabbed people in their rooms, like just while they were either getting ready for bed or fast asleep. It's just unthinkable. So I hope that there will be justice for the 4 victims. Let me know how you feel. Has justice been served by Bryan Kohberger pleading guilty and accepting 4 life without parole sentences? Or do you think that justice has been denied for the victims and their families, and that he should have faced a trial, he should have been sentenced to death, not that there's any guarantee of that, and that he should have been on death row? I'm looking forward to read your comments. If there's anything else you'd like me to talk about, you can email me. My email is grizzlytruecrime@gmail.com. You can also go to my website, grizzlytruecrime.com, if you're looking for any information, links, things like that that people often ask me about on email. All right, I'll see you again very soon. In the meantime, stay safe.